In this framework, okay, they identified what are the causes, and they checked, okay, in literatures, in thousands of literatures, to assess the determinants of child stunting in Indonesia. Based on their analysis, these are the determinants of child stunting in Indonesia. Okay, particularly in the 2018, this is the 2018 publication. Okay, stunting are more likely to happen among male children, those with premature birth, okay, those with short birth length. Okay, so that's at the individual level, at the child level. Okay, what else? Stunting happened more likely to those non-exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months. Okay, so this highlighted the importance of breastfeeding in solving the problem of stunting. What else? Can we address short maternal height? So stunting are more likely to happen on children with mother with short maternal height, okay? And those with low maternal education. So that is at the maternal level. Now, another determinant is at the household level. Those children are more likely to become stunted if they are, or if they belong to a low household socioeconomic status. Okay, and those who are living in a household with unimproved latrines and untreated drinking water, as well as those which has poor access to healthcare and living in rural areas. Okay. I have also experienced studying determinants of child stunting in the Philippines, and one or two of the main determinants of the stunting, the occurrence of stunting, particularly among a specific IPs, okay, indigenous peoples in the mountain provinces in the Philippines, was first, if for Indonesia, if it's short maternal height, in that study we found out that the father's height, if the father's height is 5 and below, the children are more likely to become stunted. Okay, what else? Those who are eating rice with coffee. Okay, so usually in the Philippines, we love to put coffee on rice. Okay, and these practices is also true in the mountainous areas because they have quite a lot of coffee. And in our study, we found out that those who are drinking more coffee, particularly children 3 to 5 years old, are more likely to become stunted. Why do you think? Why coffee? Because coffee is also just a proxy indicator for low household socioeconomic status. Okay, in the Philippines, stunting in the prevalence of stunting decreased as the socioeconomic status increased. Again, in the Philippines, stunting prevalence decreases if the socioeconomic status increases. Okay, so it's really a problem of poverty. What else? In terms of in terms of access to healthcare, it's also good that we could also improve the access to healthcare. However, they also found out in this study that there's also lacks evidence for low education, particularly among fathers, society and culture, agriculture and food system, waters and sanitation, environment contribution to child stunting. Okay, so these are some of these are the results of the study. What else? They also found out there's an evidence gaps which are inherent based on the WHO conceptual framework. Why? Which prohibited understanding of causal pathways. Okay? It will be better if we have the causal pathways to understand really the determinants of child stunting. But don't worry because, okay, one of your colleagues in Indonesia, which is my best friend in Universitas Indonesia, Dr. Ade Wiradjani, she prepared a path analysis, okay, of factors explaining severe child stunting, at the same time the role of complementary feeding on child stunting. So for this one, okay, she did the path analysis, particularly on maternal IFA tablets consumption. Okay, so this is a secondary data analysis, and her results showed that a direct pathway in terms of infant iron stores. So those who are those children with mothers who are taking IFA are more likely to reduce or to do not experience stunting. Okay, but okay, on the other side, there's an indirect pathway. So on the child's birth weight, because birth weight is quite really significantly correlated with child severe stunting. Okay, so this is on factors explaining severe child stunting, particularly the provision of multiple micronutrient or IFA among mothers. Okay, and the other one is what? The relation, okay, the association, okay, of complementary feeding practices with stunting. As you can see, this is the relation between stunting and complementary feeding practices is really strong, very, very, there's a strong relationship between stunting and complementary feeding practices. And in the analysis, the poor complementary feeding practices has 1.84 times higher risk of stunting, okay, based on, again, my friend's output in her research of secondary data using the Indonesian data from the Ministry of Health. Okay, I really love this figure. I started learning this in 1997. And those were the days when the first 1,000 days is not yet crafted, okay? And we keep on telling that we need to invest in nutrition, particularly in the first 1,000 days, to prevent stunting. Why? Because growth faltering happens, okay, in the first 1,000 days or in the first 2 years of life, okay, in the first 23 months of life of a child, and it will already plateau after quite some time. So that means the effect already happened. So that means that's the reason why nowadays, implementing interventions in the first 1,000 days of life should be prioritized, because if you really want to solve the problem of stunting, I think there's a need more for prevention than treatment or management. Okay, so now if we're going to intervene, so we already have diagnosis, we already have the nutritional assessment, we already conducted diagnosis. Let us now go to nutrition intervention. So if we're going to intervene, we have to analyze which factors are reversible or which could be addressed. Okay, premature birth. Can we treat that? It already happened. We could only prevent to do that, right? How about short birth length? Can we treat that? Maybe we can give more nutrients for the child, but if the damage has been done, okay, in the first 2 years of life, maybe it's also quite difficult. They're saying that most of the effect of stunting in the first 2 years of life are irreversible. Okay, we could only add much more height during the second growth spurt, but the potential, okay, the growth potential will no longer be achieved, okay? And then how about this? Non-exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months. If it's now, how can we cannot do anything from that anymore. We can only promote breastfeeding for those mothers who will still be experiencing breastfeeding in the first 6 months of life, right? What else? How about those low household socioeconomic status? Can we provide nutrition intervention? Yes, we could. Maybe we could have social protection. How about those living in a household with unimproved latrines and untreated drinking water? Yes, we can provide interventions right away. But can they really solve the problem of stunting? It may not be so because the damage may have been done. Okay? And how about those poor access to healthcare? We can only maybe hope that the next child or the next offspring will be properly taken care of by providing or by having healthcare services or by availing health services. And how about this? Living in rural areas. How do we address those stunting in rural areas? Okay, can we do treatment of stunting? Can we do management? I think it's really more on prevention. How do we prevent stunting? Because maybe if stunting is already there, we don't know if we will still have a catch-up growth. Maybe in the first 2 years of life, yes. But maybe after that, it will be too late. Okay? Maybe you have other ideas about it. How about here? This is the first 1,000 days. That's the essence why we need to intervene in the first 1,000 days of life. Okay? Because nutrition now matters forever. Okay? So we hope that we could prevent malnutrition as early as possible. Okay? So that its detrimental effect will be reduced. Okay? Because we're saying nutrition now matters forever. So that means we have to prevent malnutrition, particularly during pregnancy and the first, again, 1,000 days of life. Now, okay, let's apply nutrition therapy to stunting. Okay, but before that, let me see first, are there questions? Okay, maybe I'm going to answer the questions later. Okay. Okay, now, let's apply nutrition therapy to stunting. When we talk about nutrition therapy, before, nutrition therapy is about treatment of medical condition. But this is treatment or prevention of stunting through changes in diet, by adjusting quantity and quality and methods of food intake, through the use of local food, because we really want to appreciate the local food. How do we maximize the use of our local food in the improvement of food and nutrition among the population? So, okay, if we're going to use nutrition therapy, so for children, if we're going to assess, if you have the diagnosis, if the problem is really on complementary feeding and also in breastfeeding, if I may add, okay, in the Philippines, the prevalence of stunting, okay, in the first year of life, okay, first year of life compared to the second year of life is doubled or sometimes tripled, okay? That's the increase. And usually we are talking about maybe complementary feeding is not optimal. I think our our dietary diversity score, at the same time our minimum acceptable diet or MAD is only 9%. So that means our children 6 to 23 months have really suboptimal complementary feeding practices. And I think if we're going to prevent stunting, so that means we have to promote breastfeeding as longer as possible. And at the same time, we have to start complementary feeding at 6 months, because breast milk alone will not be enough. Okay, will not be enough for the needs, for the nutrient needs of a growing child, 6 months and above. Okay, so these are for the child. But how about for the mother? Okay, so that means we have to look for the mothers who would bear children. Okay, so those who would be pregnant. So to prevent stunting, okay, we should also target, okay, those would-be mothers or those who are planning to be pregnant, okay, so that stunting will be prevented. In some other countries, they are also saying zero stunting. Let us achieve zero stunting. And that means if we really want to achieve that zero stunting, that means we should start on prevention. Okay? Now, in terms of other treatment for the child, okay, even if a child is stunted, yes, we are really looking, we will work. Okay. We will work, okay, we will provide intervention for stunted children so that in the next growth spurt, his or her potential will be reached. So that is again, it's like the management is really prevention again of stunting in the second growth spurt. Okay, but we can also provide that. But if we are going to allocate resources, basically prevention is much better, okay, compared to treatment. Now, do we have the evidences? What will be the local food that we're going to provide, particularly as part of the complementary feeding? So I look for several literatures, or some literatures, to check if we have evidence, okay, in overcoming stunting through food-based recommendation. So this study is the effects of animal protein supplementation of mothers, preterm infants and term infants on growth outcomes in childhood. This is a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized trials. Most of the references I used in this presentation is more on systematic review and meta-analysis, because that means it already undergone several checklists or several criteria for further analysis, right? So what is the result of this study? Okay, here it is. Supplementation of protein from animal source foods. Actually, what are the food they introduce here? Usually milk or infant formula and other animal source food. It increased weight and weight for length, okay, particularly for under 5 children, in children, but with more limited effects on other growth outcomes, such as attained height. Okay, this is really the problem, because once a child became stunted, growth, catch-up growth is a little bit harder. Okay, so if we cannot do the catch-up growth, so that means even if we provide supplementation, particularly for the infants and term infants, sometimes growth outcomes may not result to the expectations that we want. Okay, we want to have an effective animal protein supplementation, and yet look at this. Yes, it improved weight and weight for length, but not, okay, the attainment of expected height. Okay, what else? This one, reducing stunting by improving maternal, infant, and young child nutrition in regions such as South Asia. Evidence, challenges, and opportunities by Catherine Dewi. She provided several systematic review on how to reduce stunting, particularly the food-based recommendation. Again, the food-based recommendation. And she mentioned that options for improving diets, okay, during the first 1,000 days, okay? So these are some of the interventions that we have to implement. What are those? Dietary diversification for pregnant women and for complementary feeding. What else? Increased intake of nutrient-rich foods which are available in the community, improved complementary feeding practices, micronutrient supplements. It's actually a supplement, but they're saying that it is also effective to reduce stunting. What else? Fortified foods or products specifically designed for the different target groups. Okay, so that means based on the review, we can improve diets, okay, in the first 1,000 days, okay, through dietary diversification. Again, increasing intake of nutrient-rich foods which are available in the community at a low cost, and at the same time, improved complementary feeding practices and improvement of intake of fortified foods. However, at the same time, they will also emphasize, okay, that to reduce stunting, based evidence from intervention trials indicates that several of these strategies, both prenatal and postnatal, can have positive impact on growth. However, there's considerable heterogeneity in growth response to such interventions. Okay, different interventions have different response, of course, depending on the situation, depending on the context, depending on the community, depending on the environment. So that is the reason of heterogeneity. Okay, so again, those interventions can have positive impact on growth, but again, the effect may not be equal. It may be different depending on the context. Okay, what else? Reducing child stunting, moving forward on evaluating effectiveness of programs. Okay, again, this is also from Catherine Dewi. So this is looking at the different effectiveness studies of reducing child stunting. And based on the result, there was no impact on length for age Z-score. So that means that less than 2 years old, right? Or stunting. But in a subsample exposed to intervention for a full year, okay, longer year of intervention, there was a trend toward increased length for age Z-score by plus 0.24, but a non-significant 6 percentage point reduction in the prevalence of stunting. Good. There's a reduction of stunting, but it was not significant in comparison with other groups. Okay, so this only shows it's really quite difficult to solve the problem of stunting, particularly by just providing a particular food-based local food or food-based approaches. But we have to try, right? We have to also check whether this food there are several foods that could give us or that could improve, okay, the Z-score of these children. And again, maybe we can really also improve, or we can reduce the prevalence of stunting by not just providing local food, but also providing prevention intervention. How about this? This is good news. Characteristics that modify the effect of small quantity lipid-based nutrient supplementation on child growth, individual participant data meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. Okay, so based on this result, what is SQLNS? That small quantity lipid-based nutrient. Provision of SQLNS decreased stunting. Wow, by 12%, which is relative based on relative reduction. Okay, again, the small quantity lipid-based nutrient supplementation on child has a positive effect on child growth based on this study. Okay, so maybe in your university in Malang, in Malang Polytechnic, maybe we could identify local ingredients which could be a replacement of small quantity lipid-based nutrient supplementation, because mostly these are imported. Okay, this small quantity lipid-based nutrient supplementation is important. Maybe you have in your laboratory, maybe you can look for local food items and change. Maybe we have the same composition, but we're going to use this small quantity lipid-based nutrient supplementation. Okay, so that is one of the good news. Okay, that SQLNS is doing good in decreasing stunting, particularly when in the first, again, in the first 2 years of life. Okay, in the first, in the 6 to 23 months, it decreased stunting. So that means we should intervene as early as possible. What else? Okay, this is from WHO 2017 review. They provided these complementary feeding strategies. And what are those? Nutritional counseling to mothers, provision of complementary foods, because they're saying that even if you keep on providing nutritional counseling, but the family is in impoverished state, more or less improvement in the nutritional status will not happen. Okay, what else? The provision of lipid-based formulation, as I've previously mentioned. Okay, what else? What are the other information that they provided? Programs, okay, please bear this in mind. Programs carefully designed, okay, to the needs of the target population. Okay, again, based on the needs, based on the diagnosis, can substantially improve growth. Okay, and however, the key challenge is really how to implement high quality, sustainable programs that are delivered on a large scale. Because most of the time, if they're funding, usually it's in the piloting stage. But because there's no money for the upscaling, the intervention stopped. Okay, so again, the key challenge is how to implement high quality sustainable programs, and that means we need to have leaders who are committed to invest in nutrition. Okay, we have to have leaders who will commit their resources in improving the nutrition situation of their constituents. Okay, so let me share some of our projects. Okay, some of our projects in the university. So we have this complementary feeding strategies, the recipe trial. So what is this recipe trial? So recipe trial is one way of improving the complementary feeding practices of mothers with 6 to 23 months. So how do we do it? In the first, usually the first visit, we first visit the mothers. The first visit is we conduct the interview, particularly on the feeding practices of the mothers. Okay. At the same time, in the questionnaire, the mother will be asked what will be the most common recipes she is using, particularly in feeding her child. Okay, and then what will happen? In the second visit, okay, the mother will be allowed. Okay, the mother will be allowed to cook that particular dish. Okay, the mother will be asked to prepare that particular dish which she identified during the interview. Okay, and this activity will be done in the kitchen of the mothers, and the ingredients are provided by the project. Okay, the ingredients were provided by the because we really want to pilot this. So what will happen? What happened? So during this recipe trial, uh, when the mother cooked the food, okay, our technical team will provide recommendations, okay, on how to improve the recipes to make it more nutrient dense. Okay, so how do we do that? So usually, for example, if the mother is using porridge, if the mother is just cooking porridge, okay, usually we recommend to add additional oil, okay, vegetable oil, fortified with vitamin A oil, because in the Philippines, all our oils in the Philippines are fortified with vitamin A, because we have the mandatory fortification of vitamin A on oil. Okay, and then again we will add, or we will recommend at least three. Okay, three recommendations to improve the porridge to make it more nutrient dense. Addition of some vegetables which are grown around the household or around the backyard. Okay, and on the third visit, we are going to ask the mother to prepare the improved version of that porridge. Okay, so that is how the recipe trial is conducted. Again, there will be three visits. The first visit will be the data collection, identification of recipes. The second visit is on the cooking process, and the third visit is checking if the improved version is accepted by the mothers, and if the child also consumed that improved version of porridge. Okay, as an example. Okay, so that is the recipe trial, and we have that. We have modules. We provide the modules for the local health and nutrition workers for them to be able to apply this recipe trial in several communities where they are working. Okay, so that is the recipe trial for the improvement of complementary feeding practices. Okay, what else? So this is also another food-based, local food-based that we converted into supplement or complementary feeding, or it could be also part of the supplementary feeding intervention. Okay, so this is Kalina. Kalina is the Filipino word for care. Okay, Kalina, this is the alternative food mixture. This is made from what? Rice, okay, mung bean, and sesame seeds. Okay, so the rice is grounded separately, and then the mung bean and the sesame seeds. There's a specific formulation. This pack is 7. Usually, this is 7 pesos. 7 pesos is in the Philippines. $1 is 50 pesos. So this is only 7 pesos. This is a 30 grams, or is it 45 grams? 45 grams pack. This is Kalina is the local name for infant supplementary mixture or Insumix. Okay, that was really intended for infants, or particularly for a complementary feeding for 6 months and 23 years old. Again, because it's quite to make the food more nutrient dense. So this could be used as porridge with added vegetables and other food commodities which we could use, so that it will become more the food items provided to the children will become nutrient dense. So again, This Kalina is also an aid in nutrition in other age groups, such as other older children, pregnant and lactating women, elderly, among others. Okay. So we at IHNF, particularly in the Bidani program or the Barangay Integrated Development Approach for Nutrition Improvement program, we have the recipe book. Okay, the recipe book which the mothers could use, particularly so that the mother could prepare the Kalinga recipes. Okay, and I don't know in your locality if you also have different types of mung bean and different types of sesame, different types. Maybe you could also have this kind of uh, food-based commodity for our 6 to 23-month-old children. Okay, now aside from the local food, aside from checking what local food may be available, maybe we should also overcome stunting by addressing the other causes. Okay, we at the Institute of Human Nutrition and Food, we are being commissioned by different NGOs or by different government agencies to craft or to develop modules to improve the governance, the nutrition governance, okay, of the local leaders. This one is for city or municipal mayor's guide, okay? This is about strengthening the 6 building blocks of the local nutrition systems for the first 1,000 days, okay? So after training, after the mayor's training on the leadership for nutrition program, so this reference is really strengthening. What are those? Nutrition leadership and governance, nutrition financing, human resource, nutrition information system, and using this data towards improving nutrition situation. What else? Medicine, vaccines, and other technology. And last but not the least, nutrition service delivery. Okay? So we hope by having this, actually this is recently launched, the 6 building blocks or strengthening the 6 building blocks of the local nutrition systems for the first 1,000 days. And we really want to have a multi-level, because we really want to have a multi-level, high-level action for stunting. I think Indonesia is already in that stage wherein your vice president is the lead person in solving the problem of stunting. It's really a government and the partnership with different agencies, with different organizations to fight stunting. Okay, that means we need to really have a multi-level action for stunting. Okay, so what else? Right now, we also have a problem in terms of climate, the effect of climate change. And we are saying that we also have, if we really want to also improve, if we really want to solve hunger, we should also transform our food systems. Okay? We should also transform our food systems. How? By making sufficient nutrient-rich and staple foods available to all, and it should be produced sustainably. Okay, what else? To ensure foods to move along value chains more efficiently, improving accessibility and resulting to lower cost and less loss. Why? Because really, this really increased the cost, okay, of commodities. What else? Ensure sustainable healthy diets and affordable to all, with lower demand for ultra-processed foods or products, and empower consumers to make more informed food choices, fueling rising demand for sustainable, healthy diets. Okay? These are all challenging actions. But, if we really want to solve the problem of stunting, if we really want actions, okay, to solve the problem of stunting, we should also take care of what is happening with our environment. Because we don't know what will happen next. We don't know what will happen if we keep on doing the status quo. Okay, our way of life, our ways of life are not sustainable. Okay, we are really destroying our earth, our mother earth. So that's why we also need to transform our food systems, particularly by achieving sustainable and healthy diets. So when we also use our local food, when we also process our local food, make sure that we also achieve sustainable, healthy diets. What are some ways to do that? We also have a project in the institute. We are promoting, okay, sustainable production and consumption, particularly at the food service establishments. How do we do that? We are now teaching the different state universities and colleges on how to integrate sustainable production and consumption in the tertiary curriculum, okay? So that the food waste in the industry, particularly in the food service, will be reduced, okay? Particularly in hotels, in restaurants, and how do we manage food waste and particularly managing of food waste or reducing food waste, because this is also one way of transforming our food system. Okay, and after teaching after teaching the teachers, okay, after providing the manual, okay, the teachers are now teaching the concepts, okay, to their students. They're using now the manuals. If you don't have yet any manuals on sustainable dining and sustainable dining practices, particularly in the restaurants, I'll be gladly link you with the WWF, or the Worldwide Fund of Nature, because they are really working towards transforming food system, particularly by addressing the concerns on sustainable production and consumption. Okay, but at the end of the day, if we are talking about stunting, and if you're going to promote, for example, the local food available in your area, okay. So for us, we are really promoting our local vegetables, our local fruits for complementary feeding. But right now, we are also challenged by the high cost of our vegetables and fruits because of the pandemic. At the end of the day, if we're going to solve the problem of stunting, we really have to understand the psyche of the mother and of her child, okay? Because even if we keep on telling that mother that this should be the proper way, but if she has no power to do that, if she has no power to change, I think our messages will just be wasted. We must empower them in such a way that they will understand why they need to solve the problem, why they would be part in solving the problem of stunting. It's not enough for us, for we in the academe, to just share the information. Okay, eat this. This is good. This is okay. But if we could not make our clientele understand why it is necessary to solve the problem stunting, maybe our efforts will be useless. Okay, so as much as possible, we have to understand the psyche and how could we change his or her behavior, particularly on malnutrition, in solving malnutrition. So in conclusion, so I have now my conclusion in overcoming stunting through community nutrition care and nutrition therapy and the use of local food recipes. okay, requires the following. First, assessment of stunting prevalence and causes, diagnosing the root causes of stunting, sorry for the typographical error, implementing intervention using local food, which include what? Dietary diversification and selection of nutrient-rich food, fortification of biofortification of staple foods, the use of fortified food products, and also supplementation with multiple micronutrients, although it is not food-based. What else? Measuring outcomes. So that means it's still ADME. Okay? And last but not the least, we should have also complementary feeding programs which are designed to the needs of the target population. And again, as I mentioned before, we should have a high-level commitment, a multi-level commitment to solve the problem of stunting. And at the same time, the most important person, particularly the mothers, the caregivers at the household level, they must be empowered to participate, to be involved in solving the problem of stunting. Okay, what else? I think this will be the last, participation of Indonesian population. How do we empower them to join us in solving the problem of stunting? Okay, and also, again, when we design our intervention, one intervention may not be enough. There should be a mixture or mix of interventions to be implemented. And again, we should also learn from our lesson. Okay? The lessons from the past, particularly in nutrition program and management, the lessons we have from our forefathers in the implementation of the nutrition programs, we should learn from them. We should not keep doing the same mistakes all over again. Okay? Because those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Okay? And I am now ready to answer your questions. Terima kasih, maraming salamat. Thank you and merci beaucoup. Thank you very much po.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. That's a really wonderful. Salamat. Yeah. Salamat po. Okay. Am I
Yes,
right?
salamat.
Yeah. Okay.
These are the references, by the way.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much. That's a very wonderful presentation, and you have very attractive way in explaining. I believe all the audience are stay awake listening to
Good,
you.
good.
That's good. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Now, so it's time for the question and answer session.
Sure.
I think we have many questions already, ma'am.
Okay.
The first is from, let me try to, okay, from Dewi Sophia from Universitas Indonesia. So, the
Hi.
same university. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Okay, hi,
Great.
Debbie.
Thanks for your lecture. I just want a confirmation. Could I say that stunting is when a child has a low height for their age, usually due to malnutrition, repeated infections, and or poor social simulation? I'm still wondering, oftentimes in the article or journal that I found, wasting is also low height for age. So could you please briefly explain the difference between wasting and stunting? Thank you.
Okay. So, stunting is, that means low height for age or low length for age for less than 2 years old. For low height for age, that's for 2 years old and above. Okay. So we are using the height for age Z-score in classification, in classifying those who are stunted and those who are not. Okay, we are using the -2 ST. If the child height, if you compare with the median WHO childbirth standard, if the after computation you have the Z-score as -2 and beyond or less than -2, that means that child stunted. So that is stunted. If wasting, this is a state is a type of undernutrition which uses weight for height, okay, as indicator. The indicator is weight for height, okay? For stunting, you're using the height for age. For wasting, you're not using the age. Age is not a factor, okay, in assessing the nutritional status. You are using the relationship of the height and the weight of the child in based on her or his height or length. Okay, that's why it's weight for length or weight for height. Okay, and usually it indicates current. Okay, current nutritional status. If wasting is really an immediate concern, because if the prevalence of wasting is 5%, that means you have to do action, a complete action. Because if your prevalence of stunting is only 20%, it's not yet a public health concern. But if wasting is 5%, that means you have to do something. Why? Because the problem is current. For stunting, it is that means it's the inadequacy has been chronic. Okay, it's been so long that your body has inadequacy. That's why you have your problem with the height. You cannot grow taller, okay, because of inadequate energy and nutrient. Okay, so that is the difference between wasting and stunting. Okay, did I answer the question?
Yes, I think that answered the question already. It's really clear. Okay, thank you, ma'am. We should go on to the next question from Pak Dewa. Yeah, from
okay.
Malang.
Oh, maybe it's too difficult.
We want to test you. Okay. I have okay, thank you. You have a nice lecture. My question is, I have an interest in research about stunting, and I already did some research to that. So do you think it is possible to have a joint research between Poltekkes Kemenkes Malang and your institution about stunting, especially in Malang area?
Yes, definitely. I will be gladly help if in the contextualization of the research. Right now, we have also ongoing programs or ongoing resource surveys, particularly stunting and wasting during pandemic. So I could also share my experiences in the field. Even if we are in pandemic, we have to go to the field and collect the data. So definitely, it will be an honor. It will be a pleasure to help Malang.
Okay.
Did you have maybe some stunting? Can we conduct in our district in Malang City?
Yes, actually we have already. Actually, we usually apply for. Usually, there's a call for proposal, right? We have a call for proposal, but if we can use that, that the framework that we are using in understanding malnutrition, particularly stunting, we could also share those proposals with you. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
We
can join research with your institution, especially maybe duplicate from your proposal before.
Yes, okay, definitely.
Okay, he is very happy now.
Great.
Yes, thank you, Pak Dewa. And then now we go on with the next question from Sinta, Uin Wali Songo, Semarang. Why developing countries also contribute to the potential for stunting with a fairly high prevalence, even though the economic factors, education, and sanitation feasibility is very guaranteed and easy to reach?
Okay. The problem in the developing countries, there are pockets. There are many pockets or areas which are very impoverished. Those who are experiencing, particularly in those poor areas. although look at Jakarta. Jakarta is really very progressive, right? I think some also part of Malang, right? But look at the rural areas. Usually at the rural areas, sometimes they don't have enough food there. Even if they have very wide areas for planting, sometimes the diversity of the diet that they are eating, the diversity of the diet is not that much. Okay, I have we have a study right now in uh, in Barm. Barm is Bangsamoro region in Muslim Mindanao. It's in Mindanao. Okay, so it's near Indonesia.
Yeah.
And, recently I analyzed the intake of children 6 to 23 months. And I can't help but cry. You know why? Because their intake, the children's intake are the following: rice and salt, rice, water and salt, rice and soy sauce. So that's the usual intake of those children. So that means those are some of the indicators that, or some of the signs that these children could really be affected by stunting, or this could result to stunting if the intake is prolonged for quite a period of time. So it's really quite sad, and that means we really need to intervene immediately. So I think I was not able to mention that aside from providing the local food, sometimes social protection is also necessary. There are different researches that saying that it's not enough to provide education, even if nutrition education to a particular household, we just no means to buy any food. So that means you really need to give some social protection. It's a nutrition education plus social protection, so that they could also buy the food that are nutrient dense, more nutrient dense, to be given to their children. Because if it's just nutrition education and that household do not have the power, particularly to purchase the food that they need for the growing child, definitely the nutrition education will not work. And that is based on different studies. Okay, they're saying that nutrition education work for those food secure household, but not for those food insecure household. So that's why there's really a need for the mix of intervention. If we're really going to introduce improvement in the local food, we must make sure that that family will have the means to also purchase the food that we're going to recommend.
I agree with you, ma'am. So empowering, yeah.
Yes. And I think what another means is also economic development. I think Indonesia has been Indonesia and in Southeast Asia, we are doing well in terms of economic, because Indonesia is part of the G20, right? Yeah. So that means it's a very big economy. But at the same time, that economy should be translated, okay, into social protection for our poor, through education, particularly how do we improve through livelihood, so that those in the lower economic condition will really be part of the economy. They're saying that even if we have the very very high GDP, but as long as the or the poorest of the poor will not be changed, or will not be influenced by the GDP. It's like GDP will not be it's like the rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer. So that GDP should be used to empower the poor, so that they will be lift economically. Because definitely economic development is also one way to solve the problem of stunting.
Yes. Hope it can happen in your country, ma'am. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. Now we go on to the next question from Ibu Nurul, Poltekkes Kemenkes Malang, our head of dietitian program.
Okay.
According to Professor Lila, what are the urgent concrete steps that nutritionists can take given the complexity of the problem causing the stunting?
Okay, first and foremost is really practicing what you preach. If you really want to promote breastfeeding, definitely you're the first one to do breastfeeding because you have to
Okay.
practice what you preach, right?
Yes.
And at the same time, you'll be the advocate. You'll be the advocate. You will not be shy. You will be confident in talking to anyone how to solve the problem of stunting, how to solve malnutrition. If that is the mayor, if that is a housewife, if that is a local leader, a barangay chieftain, or a village chieftain, or anybody, you are confident. At the same time, you are humble, maybe not arrogant in terms of academic. That means uh, you are explaining it based on who are you talking to. At the same time, that person will really understand where are you coming from. Okay? Because it's really a complex and we
Kata teman
need
kita,
more
anjir,
forces.
gatel.
Okay, we
Beneran
need
lo gatel.
more people to participate on the action for nutrition, and definitely if they will be sidestep by our action or by our, maybe we could also, the way we explain should also be humble enough in such a way that they will really understand and they will participate in the action for nutrition. I think that's one way of doing things. Let us just be confident. I think that's also one of our problems with our students. Okay, sometimes they don't want to know because they really just want to use the cell phone, right? But how will they be articulate in such a way that how will you explain if you're going to talk to the mayor, if you're going to talk to the local leaders, if you're going to the technical staff or to those others who are engaged in agriculture, in economics, and you have to explain nutrition. So confidence level, and you should also know what you do not know. You should also know that I don't know this, but I know this. And I can be very, very happy in explaining this to you. That's what I learned in Indonesia. I know what I do not know. I know what I know, and I know how I can share it. That's basically my PhD my PhD learning.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean not know. But I didn't know all the things around the world, but I know some,
Yes.
and I want to be good at that.
Yes.
I want to be the best at that. That's it.
That's really great, ma'am.
Mhm.
Okay. Confidence is the key, yeah?
Confidence,
Okay.
Now,
confidently beautiful
wait,
with the heart from our Miss Universe.
but we can see your beauty from here. Don't worry, ma'am.
Okay.
Now we go on with the question from Inge Polkesma. Polkesma is Poltekkes Kemenkes Malang, ma'am. Okay, this is related to the pandemic era.
Mhm.
So, is it possible that during this pandemic there will be an increase in the prevalence of stunting?
Yes,
And
it's possible.
is possible. And do stunted children over the age of 2 years who have passed the first 1,000 days of life, can their growth completely irreversible? Their growth is completely irreversible. So,
Okay. As much as possible, the literature is a little bit, sometimes it's conflicting. They're saying that it's irreversible already. Look at the materials that I provided. Okay, for those intervention in the first 2 years of life, stunting is reduced because the interventions is in the first 2 years of life. But look at other studies which has intervention from 0 until 5 years old. Sometimes the results are mixed. Why? Because the growth pattern is different for different age group. And I don't really want to believe that stunting is irreversible. Once you have it in the first years of life, you will the effect is really there. I really don't want, but there are many evidences that going into that. Okay, and much as well, we just have to warn ourselves that if malnutrition happened during the first 23 months of life, let's just how do you call this? Let's accept it that if malnutrition happened, the effect is really that much. The effect is so much that we really have to prevent malnutrition in the first 2 years of life. Right now, we have pandemic. Why do you, for me, I think stunting will increase. Why? Because based on our in our field researches, I think we're saying that I think some of the households were not able to cope, particularly for those household with family members who were laid off from work. Many, for example, in the Philippines, we have so many daily laborers, daily workers, particularly those who are selling things, those who are selling food along, those are selling in their house. But because of pandemic, they have to close their stores, they have to close their business. They cannot work because of the closures and the lockdown. So that means there's not much enough money to for the family. So that's the reason why it's possible that stunting will also increase during the maybe right now. For example, in the Philippines, we're having data collection for post-pandemic nutritional status, and I don't know if I'm guessing that stunting will increase because of what happened, particularly in the 2 years. We are already 2 years in this
Yeah. 2
in
years.
this pandemic, right? 2 years, and hopefully we will no longer experience this kind of pandemic. Okay,
I hope so.
so that I can go to Malang and go to Bromo again.
And enjoy Bromo, yeah.
Yeah, and enjoy Bromo again.
Bromo is closed also because of the pandemic. Yeah.
Ay, okay.
So let go of
Anyway.
the pandemic then. Yeah. Okay, ma'am. We can continue our chat later, yeah?
Okay.
And now we have the question again
Mhm.
from Fifi Lutfia from
Mhm.
Polpesma. If there are many choices of nutrition interventions for stunting, how can the community choose the right one from the choices? So how to
Okay.
choose?
That's a very good question. Thank you for that question. We are doing that in the laboratory actually. So if you have limited resources, you have to address the immediate problem, which is wasting. Okay? Because if you have wasting, that means the problem is current. So that means you have to address. Okay? So if it's if the child has mom, definitely supplementary feeding should be provided until the child became normal. And at the same time, if the child has SAM, or if SAM means severe acute malnutrition, that means that child should be referred to the outpatient or in the hospital, because severe acute malnutrition is very alarming. So that means it must be addressed immediately. So that's the first one. The next one is how much is the resources. Okay, so that means if your resources is this much and you can afford the immediate concern and all the and some other intervention, the next thing is for prevention. Promotion of breastfeeding, promotion of complementary feeding. I think this will not cost too much. Okay, so that will also be provided. Again, the prevention, taking care of the pregnant women. Okay, if you're going to, for example, you have money for feeding stunted children and pregnant women, and you want to choose, please choose the pregnant women, particularly if those pregnant women belong to the poor household or impoverished household. Why? Because we want to prevent malnutrition. We want to prevent stunting by providing food for this pregnant women, so that low birth weight will be avoided. At the same time, stunting will be avoided, because based on literatures, those low birth weight are more likely to become stunted. Those short children or short infant born are more likely to be or short infant born to mothers are more likely to become stunted also.
Okay, thank you. So prevention, yeah. Once again, prevention is the best choice, I think. Okay, now we still have about 3 questions.
Okay.
I hope you still have the energy for answering the question.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. The next question is from Andy Trish Polkesma. Can you please give some examples of health services provided for health services provided to the stunted children in your country, and can you describe a little bit about that programs, because maybe we can learn from your experience.
Okay, as I've mentioned, our one of our strategies to address stunting is really addressing it in the first 1,000 days of life. So what are they? For example, taking care of the pregnant women. As much as possible, we must locate all pregnant women, particularly those teenager who are pregnant, because they are really at risk. Okay, and we also have that notion that all pregnancies are critical. Okay, all pregnant women should be defined. All pregnancies are critical. That's why they must be referred to the healthcare services. That's one. The second one is really promotion of breastfeeding. We have also in some areas we have lactation. We have milk bank in some cities to really collect to collect breast milk, particularly for those infants who do not have, for example, if the mother died during delivery, so they're provided with the breast milk. And what else? Aside from promotion of breastfeeding, of course, complementary feeding. Our big problem is really on complementary feeding. Again, because 30% of our population are also in the below the poverty line. So that means even if we have all this kind of IEC materials, we have all this kind of beautiful messages but at the same time, if they don't have any money to buy the food, definitely it will be useless, those IEC materials. But we also have a social protection program. We have the 4Ps. It's called 4Ps, Tagalog, PPPP. That means conditional cash transfer, and these are being provided to poor households or those belong to the below poverty line, and there are conditions such as they have to go to the center. Pregnant women are also included in this in this protection, and this is social protection. They must also be vaccinated. They must also be participative in the delivery of health and nutrition programs. So those are their conditions to be part of that. To be part of the conditional cash transfer. So those are some of the interventions that we have for stunting. Again, these are more on prevention, because we're saying that we have very limited resources. So if we really focus on addressing wasted children first before because they really need immediate concern, really immediate attention. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. There is an Adan voice here. Maybe you can hear.
Yes.
Yes. So I should. Okay. Now we go on with the next question. From Nur Shifa Safira Polkesma. Hello, Prof. I'm interested
Hi.
in the nutrition care topic. How do we deal with people that have a strong culture and that are very traditional in some areas of Indonesia, which has strict rules of what food should not be eaten or consumed?
Okay. First and foremost is listen. Listen. Because sometimes we are very eager to share our our knowledge, and that's the reason why sometimes it's quite difficult for them to. That's the reason why some of them are not really amenable with our suggestions, because we really want to talk. So first is to listen. Second is understand the culture. Third is maybe they have alternatives. Look for that alternatives. Because maybe in the course of discussion, you could also find those alternatives which could be helpful, okay, improving their intake or improving their way of eating. Okay, so it could be, and you could also, there's another term is compromise. How will you compromise? It's like this is the norm, and this is how it should be. It's wrong, or it's suboptimal. But at the same time, you also have to understand why they have that kind of culture. Maybe you have to talk to the chieftain. You have to talk to the chief. Maybe not the mothers. Maybe the male figure in the household should be the one to talk to. Maybe not directly to the mothers, because these are culturally bounded. So those are some of my suggestions, and let's try. I think the best way would be just listen and learn from them,
Yes.
and maybe embrace their culture. Maybe from there, once that you have the rapport to suggest, maybe that will be the time uh, that they will follow, or that they will try your suggestion. Maybe you just have to go with along with them first before just build rapport. Okay.
Okay. I love it when you say listen. It reminds me of Beyonce. Beyonce song, right?
Listen.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Okay.
great. Now we have the question from Bapak Sadli, Puskesmas Bobanego. Yes. I want to ask, now I work at the community health center. This is the most basic unit of health facilities in Indonesia.
Mhm.
At this health center, there is a feeding program. So, what based on your experience, what kind of local food with dominant nutritional content that can help to handle stunting? And how long is the ideal time to treat stunting from a feeding intervention?
Okay. If you really want to feed stunted children, maybe you need years, 2 years to implement, because you can at height is difficult to change, particularly if growth spurt is not yet there. The highest growth rate is really in the first years of life, and then it always slows down. So if you're implementing supplementary feeding, maybe it should be for wasted children and not for stunted children. Again, maybe it should be for wasted and for pregnant women. Okay, maybe you could just provide multiple micronutrient supplementation to those stunted children, so that by second growth spurt they have their store, and then they could have their second growth spurt well. But again, as I've mentioned, if you have money to for supplementary feeding, look for pregnant women, particularly those belong to the poverty-stricken areas and those who are wasted children.
Okay.
For wasted children, it depends. Maybe 2 months time is already okay. Maybe it's 3 months time, because sometimes you just have to make it to check the change. Sometimes 2 months is already okay if you have continuous feeding for the children. But for stunting, I don't know. Maybe it will be
Be long time.
a long time. And usually, when you're looking at stunting, that's the reason why it's not being used. If you're going to evaluate programs, you just have to evaluate if your programs is long term. Maybe yes, you may use stunting. You may use height for age or length for age as your indicator to measure success. But if it's only a short term intervention, usually it's all about using weight for age as your indicator for yes, indicator or as the variable, and then your indicator is wasting or the percentage wasting to measure the success of your project, particularly short-term projects.
For short-term projects. Okay, thank you, ma'am. That's really helpful, I think. Okay, we have maybe one last question, here from Ibu Dia, Poltekkes Kemenkes Bandung. Ibu Dia was raising the hand, but finally she write down here. Thank you, ma'am. So, hello, ma'am. In Indonesia, we have cadres that help us to support any programs, improving, for example, like improving the welfare of mothers and children who are malnourished. At the Posyandu, Posyandu is the integrated health service post
Yes.
that the government. I'm very curious. Are there also cadres in Philippines, and how do they work? Thank you.
Yes, we have two types of cadres. The first one is the barangay nutrition scholar. Or they are scholar. Why? Because that means as a scholar, not because they have money that they're being provided to them as a scholar. Scholar in the sense that they have to continue learning nutrition, because learning is nutrition is a very dynamic discipline. And then there's one BNS or one barangay nutrition scholar per village. If the village is quite big, usually they select another one or another two, depending on the size of the village. We have also barangay health workers. Barangay health workers depends on the number of population. So this is specific. I forgot the ratio. One BHW for every, I don't know if it's 200 household or 200 population. So that means if there's 2,000, there should be 10 barangay health workers, and they have specific duty according to geography. So those are the cadres. We also have that kind of those kind of workers, and most of them are volunteers. They don't have money. They don't have honorarium, but because our local government units are devolved, they could provide some allowance to them. But not that much. It's very, it's very small actually. In some cities, I think they have more honorarium for cadres. But for third, fourth, fifth class or sixth class municipalities, the pay is so low. Or the incentive is low. But we are very happy that they keep on providing the services for the community. And sometimes we understand if some services are not that provided given the nature of their job and also the limitations of the compensation.
So mostly are voluntary work,
Yeah. And For to become a BHW, you should be a volunteer for 1 year
Mm.
before you will be given an appointment. So that is the
I
rule.
see.
Mm.
Okay. Maybe Indonesia should also do that. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Okay. So let me see the chat box. I think, yeah, that should be the last question.
Right?
Is there any other question? No one raising hand. No. Okay, so I think that will be the last question, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you very much for the information. It's really, really insightful and inspiring for us. So I believe at least it can help to improve our condition, especially in Malang, yeah, Vidya.
Yeah. I hope I shared something. It may not be that much, but I think that's what that's from the bottom of my heart. It may not, yeah, yeah. Thank you also. It's really an honor and a pleasure to
Yeah.
share something
Yeah.
that I am passionate about.
Mhm. Sharing and believing, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. Uh-huh.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Or maybe do you have any closing statement for us?
Ah, thank you very much for inviting me, and keep the fire burning for nutrition. That's it.
Mhm. Okay, keep fighting. Yeah,
Yeah, keep fighting,
fighting.
fighting for nutrition.
Fighting
Yes.
for nutrition. That's
Yes.
great. Really
Uh-huh.
great.
Uh-huh.
Okay, can't wait to see you in Malang, ma'am.
Sure. Yes,
Uh-huh.
definitely. Looking
Yeah.
forward to be there.
Yes, visiting Bromo. Yeah. Okay.
Hopefully, it
Salamat.
will be open by that time. Walang
Yes.
anuman.
Yeah.
Walang anuman.
Okay. Okay, then, so ladies and gentlemen, today we have a really insightful presentation from Professor Leila. She is a very spiritual person, energetic person. I love her. Yeah. We have come to the end of the session. Thank you very much. And I hope to have more to see her again later in other presentation and other activities, other occasions. And also thank you very much to all the participants who are also already actively participated, yeah, in today's session. Hopefully this session will be beneficial for all of us. So thank you all. See you all again. And wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Over to you, Miss April. See you, ma'am.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much to Prof. Leila Saktilan Aftikar ND as our main speaker who has given us lots of insightful information about nutrition care and nutrition therapy in overcoming malnutrition, specifically in stunting. Through the use of a local food, maybe it will be useful in our nutrition and dietitian and will be a great contribution for our society. Also, thank you so much for Mrs. Eka who has led the discussion. Now it's time to certificate awarding for our main speaker and moderator by Mrs. Nuru or Mr. Tapriadi.
Excuse me.
Yes?
I am.
Can I request for a group photo?
Oh yes.
Of course,
For
why
the last
not?
session.
Of course, why not?
Yes, because I need to also provide proof for my ano. So I'll
For a
request for
report,
group photo.
Okay.
Okay. Can you open your video? Okay. This group one. Okay, one. So there will be 7 slides.
Mhm.
Okay.
So many participants here.
Yeah, so many participants.
It's 200. It's about
Yeah.
200. Yes.
Very insightful lecture.
Okay, I'm finished with Anna. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay.
You.
Now it's time for the certificate awarding. for our main speaker, Mrs. Nurul or Mr. Tapriadi.
Yes,
You can join the screen.
I am Miss Aprilia.
Yes.
Yes. As a thank you for the role of Professor Laila Dalam Afrika R&D as speaker, and Mrs. Eka Wulandari, PD and PD as moderator. Please accept our form of action in the form of the following a certificate. Please accept. And
Okay.
yes,
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Nurul.
yes, and I will submit a closing statement as follows. Great pleasure to work with Professor Laila Sakdalan Afrika R&D. We hope that in the future we can continue with the aim of solving the stunting problem in a real and sustainable way through university collaboration with full confidence. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Nurul. Finally, from the deepest of my heart, I do apologize for my mistakes as the master of ceremony today. To close the program, let's recite Hamdalah together. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin. Thank you for joining this international webinar. We look forward to seeing you at next month on 8 December 2021 from Nutrition Department Poltekkes Kemenkes Malang. Well,
Excuse me. How about the certificate of Prof. Laila?
Maybe Mrs. Nurul can.
Certificate of the
Certificate
Professor
for
Laila.
Professor Laila.
Yes, Mbak Ola.
It's already given to Miss Leila.
Itu gimana ya? Dia itu suka makan ikan koi gitu. Sehingga buah mengkudu yang menghasilkan pohon durian.
Ola, and certificate for Prof. Laila.
Okay, it's already on chat box.
For Prof. Laila. No.
Yes, this one.
Yes, this one. Yeah. Yes, thank you for the role of Professor Laila. Do you hear me?
They're still on. Okay.
Professor Laila.
Yes. Thank you very much for the certificate.
Yes, thank you for the role of Professor Laila as a speaker, and please accept our form of appreciation in the form of the following. Please accept.
Thank you very much for the certificate.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Pak Dewo, thank you very much.
You are welcome. You free.
Yeah.
Very nice lecture.
Thank you, thank you.
Very insightful. Okay.
Good to know.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Okay.
I have to remove my the background is no longer working, so I have to remove. Thank you very much, Pak Dewo.
Yes.
You are welcome. Yeah. You should collaboration with us in Malang, okay?
Definitely. Yes, let's
Okay.
work on it. Let's have an MOU signed. Together.
MOU sign, please.
Yes.
Remind Mrs. Nurul should be MOU sign.
Yes. We're going
Maybe
to
I will go to UP Los Banos, I think.
Sure, why not?
Why not? With
Sure,
Mr. Nurul,
sure.
Mrs. Nurul, okay. We should go
Okay.
to UP Los Banos.
It's also a very beautiful place. You should go there. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, nice to work with you, Miss Prof. Laila.
Okay, bye-bye. I have to go because I still have a meeting at 1 p.m. It's already at 12:43, so
Okay,
I have to
no
go.
problem.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Prof. Laila.
Bye-bye.
Okay, for all participants who have not filled in attendance, you can fill in the Google link. You can fill in the Google form. The link is already on chat box. Don't forget to fill an attendance. Finally, from the deepest of my heart, I do apologize for my mistakes as the Master of Ceremonial today. To close the program, let's recite Hamdalah together. And don't forget to look forward seeing you at next month on 8 December 2021. Well, that's wrap up our event. I wish you all pleasant day. Finally, we will now have a photo session. And to all participants, please turn on your cameras so we can take the pictures together. There are 7 pages here. For all participants, you can turn on your cameras so we can take the picture together, please. Okay, page 1, ready? Maybe Miss Ola, you can help me to screenshot.
Okay.
Page 1, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Okay, done.
Okay, page 2. 1, 2, 3.
Done.
Page 3. 1, 2, 3.
Done.
Page 4. 1,